Now let's get on to another major corporate story we're tracking right here in the Middle East. Saudi Aramco has reportedly picked JPMorgan and Morgan Stanley to advise on its plan to buy part of chemical maker SABIC. Now Reuters says Aramco wants to purchase a controlling interest in the company, possible even the entire 70% holding owned by the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Of course, that's a public investment fund, the PIF as we call it. JPMorgan and Morgan Stanley have already been among the advisors assisting the oil giant on its big mother of all IPOs. And now, Shri, this really does raise the question yet again, doesn't it, about when we are actually going to see this Aramco IPO materialize? Because essentially what this SABIC buyout would actually do, it would essentially give the public investment fund a heck of a lot of cash to play with. And that was really the entire point of the Aramco IPO in the first place.
Well, I think what it's done is called into question the exact model of Aramco's IPO in the first instance, because you and I know that it may not come to a listing. It may very well come to a strategic sale to a strategic buyer, and that buyer could very well be China. That is still very much a story that I think is in the running. So I think, Hadley, you nailed it. SABIC, I think, just buys Aramco some time, really, but questions still remain on the choice of listing venue and whether the buyers are really going to go for it, because it's still unclear what they think about the reserves. That's still a big black box. Oil is a sunset industry, and there's also this perception of too much state control. Now, what's really interesting in Asia is that Aramco have been developing and investing in petrochemical projects, in refining projects, and that part of the business is growing, it's value added. It surprises me, quite frankly, that they didn't spin out the downstream division, which would have been arguably more transparent than the upstream. I don't know, maybe there's still time for them to consider that.
And you know, that's an interesting thing you bring up, because those relationships were really cultivated over the last several years under Ali Al-Naimi. It was a major part of his basically diversifying Aramco. This was a big part of his projections for making sure that happened. He spent so much time in Asia as well. And of course, that all plays into the foreign policy aspect of this, doesn't it?
No, absolutely, yes. And when you consider what's been happening in this side of the world, the Rapid project in Malaysia, and also they've been very active in India, developing and buying stakes in refiners. It just seems to be where the growth is. And as I said, it's more transparent. It just seems to be a more sensible path to take, as opposed to spinning off the entire, well, even just 5% of the entire company, which includes upstream assets that are very notoriously difficult to value. And as I said, something of a black box. Anyway, I think the SABIC story really just buys Aramco more time, doesn't it, at the end of the day, for them to consider their options?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. And you have to also look at this a little bit more broadly, take a step back and see what they're trying to do in terms of the public investment fund's investment potential, but also, of course, when it comes to making sure that foreign investors get into Saudi Arabia. They basically now said they're creating two funds at something like $18 billion to make sure that they can partner with these foreign companies to come and invest inside the country, because, of course, we saw FDI dropping off in 2017 quite significantly.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, the success or failure of Aramco is going to be a big litmus test on Vision 2030.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now, to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.